Alright, well, hello again everyone and welcome out. This is Ankit from Maverick Currencies and this is a market roundup for Monday, June the 27th. So let's talk about today's market price action and take a look at how things are moving, and we can set up ourselves for this upcoming 24 hours and discuss our trading plan for the week. So starting with the market analysis, we started off this week as our expectation was that markets likely to consolidate to extend gains. So far we are getting a bit of a consolidation here. We did try to push up higher a couple of times during the day, and we tried to go push down a couple of times during the day, but we weren't really seeing things kind of having a follow through. So usually whenever we get that, this is just where we're noticing a consolidation. So we had a big week last week, so we are off the lows, but at the same point, if we are not having a follow through, it doesn't mean we're likely to roll over. We're just testing these levels before we can actually get above those moving averages. So our outlook is still a bit of a sideways to moving higher, but we might spend a couple of days in consolidation before we extend those gains. So the outlook remains the same. And as we take a look at the world markets, very similar price action. The world markets are also trying to get above this previous support, which is now the resistance, still away from those moving averages. So there's a bit of a lagging price action in the European markets. But overall, I think we'll probably just be on a little path on sideways to higher. Where we don't see much of a follow through is in the crypto world. So we have talked about crypto over and over. The outlook hasn't really changed. For things to reverse, we need to see a big bounce. And as you can see, this price action is very similar to what we saw back in May. We saw a long period consolidation and then we just broke lower. So this is not a price action that we want to be talking about for a potential long. I think if you're looking for reversals, there's definitely a lot more other places to buy. So this is not the place to be looking for those. And again, we talk about relative strength and weakness. This is what we call relative weakness, not relative strength. So let's not spend too much time on crypto and talk about other areas where we're seeing a better movement. And as we take a look at the percentage return today, it was actually a very small percentage movement, which is again telling us that we are getting a bit of a consolidation after that big last week. S&P down 0.29, crypto was down 0.73, gold is down 0.19. So the only area that we actually saw a bigger jump is in the oil. And that's where the volatility has been. Oil markets tend to fluctuate quite a bit in the percentage change. But outside of that, I think the markets are a bit more in the sideways range here. So as we go with our market outlook this week, again, I think we're still at zero. We're right at the moving average there at 20-day moving average. So I think once we get above it, we could see a little bit more buying coming in. But until then, we could just try to go sideways or consolidate gains here. As far as our week goes, as far as news events, it's not a busy week when it comes to getting these catalysts from the markets. We have been, seeing a lot of movements off this news events, but this is the last week of the month, and usually we see a bit of a quiet period before we go into next week and a new month, and that's when the central banks start to come up and we start to get that catalyst back on the docket here. So only thing that we have is on Wednesday when we have these president from ECB and Bank of England and Fed chair speaking on a Wednesday morning. But outside of that, you can see there's not a whole lot you can find. So as far as the news catalysts, we don't have a whole lot. So let's talk about our currency analysis. Let's see where we started off. And on a Friday, everything was sitting at a zero. There was not a whole lot of velocity in the markets, and we usually want to be avoiding that kind of market environment. As we go into today, let's take a look at the percentage change in the market movements. And in the cryptocurrency world, well, let's just quickly glance over and go into the currency world because we're not really seeing a whole lot of consistency here. Now, looking at the currency world, well, we are noticing some relative strength and weakness here. Aussie and Kiwi continues to be on the relative weakness side. And I've actually been watching both the Aussie and Kiwi and see if they start to diverge. But right now, they're actually been performing very similarly here. But outside of that, CAD remains the relatively stronger currency, which has been the pattern overall. So the usual suspects are still holding up. Swiss franc still holding up here, and again, the euro is actually joining the Swiss franc over there and taking the lead. So we'll take a look at euro as well. But then pound is kind of flat. The dollar is kind of flat, and then again, even yen had quite a fluctuation from last night to today. So what we're noticing in yen is more volatility, but not really seeing a big advancement. So let's take a look at some charts. I will talk about it. But as we take a look at the velocity scores as it stands right now, we are seeing a positive velocity in the Canadian dollar, positive velocity in the euro, and a negative one on the yen. Now we got a huge basket of everything sitting at a zero. So whenever things are sitting at a zero, it's an opportunity for these currencies to swing one way or the other. Or they could just consolidate for extended periods. So we are seeing now back-to-back consolidation from Friday now to Monday. Really, a lot of the other currencies really hasn't changed much. So let's take a look at possible trades and then talk about certain technical levels or certain technical setups that we're currently watching. So let's start with the dollar. And dollar CAD is the one that I've been paying attention to. Again, CAD has been doing nicely, and the dollar has been just hanging out there. Let's actually take a look at dollar basket. On a daily chart, you can see that we got a double top on the dollar basket, and the last few days have been really choppy. So it's very unclear right now which way dollar wants to go. So the parabolics are right there. So if it does start to break lower, I think the dollar could push lower. But then at this point, it's not really giving us a good signal. So I think we just need to be prepared for both case scenario. What if the dollar breaks out? What if the dollar breaks lower? If the dollar breaks lower, I think dollar CAD is sitting very nicely here on a daily chart, double top at about 130.50 or 130.60 area. So that's a very strong level of resistance. And outside of that, again, this is a big range that we have been chopped around. But once we give up this level, as you can see, this is the lower band of that move. If you give up this level, now that opens up a huge window for further losses in there. So I'm watching closely dollar CAD, but mostly watching it on a 4-hour chart. And you can see the 4-hour chart is just not really giving me a good signal here. We can use this previous low over here on June 15 as about 128.60. So I don't want to short before that. If it does break below that 120.60 area, I think I will be looking into maybe entering a position on the short side. Outside of the dollar CAD, let's talk about dollar yen, the infamous currency pair that everybody has been enjoying. And again, this is where the movement has been. We get longer period consolidation, and then we actually get a bit of a advancement. So right now we have seen a breakout, pullback. So prior resistance is now the support. I think this is still a good long. Now, depending on when do you want to enter, because there's volatility that takes place. I mean, look at the price action on an hourly chart from the last 24 to 48 hours. You notice that the dollar yen hasn't been flying as you would want it to be. We get this big push down, big reversal, get pushed down, a big reversal, another push down over here, and a big reversal. So I think you have to kind of watch out when these big movements are happening. And if we take a look at it, these are all happening in the Asian session here. So both the last two sessions, they were in the Asian markets. So as we go in the Asian markets, as long as it holds above it, I think I would like to buy it on the upside. But yeah, it depends on what time frame you're trading on. I like it on a 4-hour chart to stop below at 134.40 area, but then the retest at about 136.65 area. And we can actually take a look at other currencies and see what other currency pairs that would actually fits the theme here. But again, CAD yen as well. Again, looking at CAD yen. This is a kind of a weird chart pattern here because we did break lower, had a lower high, now kind of making a bit of a higher low. So if it gets above that 106 area, I think is a good buy. Testing the 107, but from 105.19 to 106, 105.70, 105.80, that's a window where it could slowly creep higher before it actually makes its run. But just realize, there are periods where it consolidates and there are periods where it's actually making that run. So once you identify that, then that's the moment to get behind those movements there. So outside of those two, again, I've been actually watching Aussie Kiwi closely as well, just to see if there is a divergence, because you can see there has been a very, the Aussie has been enjoying that divergence with this Kiwi, and we actually seen that trend kind of break lower a little bit here. So on the daily chart, we got a nice little bear rally, and I'm actually watching this 109.60 area, and if it does break that, I think I would like to kind of jump behind that just based on that divergence. So not really seeing that divergence right now, but when it does, I think that will be a currency pair to pay attention to as well. Again, looking at 4-hour chart, looks a little bit messy, so we want to see this area kind of clear out 109.60 before it actually makes a move lower. But until then, actually, Aussie CAD actually looks pretty nice here, moving lower. So again, this is a big level of support, and as you can see, we tested this level a couple of times. So if it does break again, I think there's a better downside in this Aussie CAD. And I know I have traders that are actually watching Aussie dollar as well. And again, if you take a look at Aussie dollar and Aussie CAD, again, both are doing well. But right now, I mean, CAD has been definitely in the leading charts there. So I think both setups looks good. Aussie dollar, I think, is still a little off the support, where Aussie CAD is right at the support. If it does break the support, notice that this is a big important level of support here. And each time we are rallying, we're making lower highs. So I think eventually it's going to break lower. Now, we don't know when, but I think as we set up this level, if it does break that level, I think there's a further downside risk in this Aussie dollar as well. But because we don't know where the dollar is going, I think Aussie CAD seems to be a better play here. Outside of this, these crosses, let's actually take a look at Swiss franc, because that's the number one currency that I've been kind of asked questions about. And I mean, taking a look at chart, I mean, this is on a daily chart, you can see a lot of wicks that you get on it. So what that means is that a lot of times we run up and we actually pull back, which again is giving us those false indication that it actually wants to move lower or maybe pull back, and this is not really pulling back. So 4-hour chart is still holding steady. So until this 4-hour chart start to break lower, make a lower high and a lower low, that's when you know that Swiss franc is turning lower. But until then, I think it's better to kind of stay bullish on the Swiss franc. Daily chart might look like it wants to reverse, but just pay attention to 4-hour chart. Outside of the Swiss franc, there's another, let's talk about euro, because this thing is also slowly creeping higher as well. I mean, look at this. This is at +1. It's still has this uptrend, but in between, you notice that there's been times when it actually does pull back. So we don't want to be in those times when it actually pulls back, and then maybe look for those pullbacks as a buying opportunity. I actually talk about Euro Swiss franc in the Currency Room Weekend video as well, and so far you can see that the Euro and the Swiss franc are just tied up there, and we're actually watching this parity level on the dollar Swiss franc. But I think at this point, as we are getting closer to that parity level, both the dollar and both the Swiss franc and euro could be just performing similarly. So we can actually take a look at the euro as well alongside of the Swiss franc. But we are seeing relative weakness in the pound, and you can see, I mean, right now this chart is very, very choppy. So notice that there are certain currencies that you just want to rule out because it's not really going anywhere. I mean, Kiwi, same thing, not really moving either up or down. The CAD is slowly moving up. But then even CAD, I just want to point out that there are times when you just see this quick movements, but they're just being in a buying opportunity. I mean, we saw this right here this morning. It pulled back pretty aggressively to just rally back up. It pulled back just to rally back up. So this is just telling me that this is a one-sided trade, meaning if it does pull back, it's gonna rise up pretty quickly. So you want to use those pullback as a buying opportunity until the pattern changes. So that's those are the areas that we're looking at. Euro, yen, I mean, a lot of the yen crosses still looks good to the upside. But I think we just have to kind of wait and see if once the yen is actually making a run. But a lot of the yen crosses looks like it has a nice little upside potential here once it actually start to make a run here. So in order to find out if the yen is running, just pay attention to the yen basket. Right now, as we go into this Asian session here, the yen is actually weakening. So I actually do like yen short going to the Asian session, but that means dollar yen looks good to the upside, CAD yen looks good to the upside, and even potentially euro yen looks good to the upside. So those are my current picks here, and then paying attention to those correlated currencies like Euro Swiss franc and Aussie Kiwi, just to find out where is the relative strength of weakness. So that's really the game plan here. Just want to keep reminding that this is a quieter week compared to other weeks, and if you look at the schedule for the next 2 to 3 weeks, we have a whole lot going. So the week like this, where velocity is very low, even though you like the setups, but with the velocity is not there, this is the time to cut back on your position size, or cut back your activity, increase your time frame, because we're getting some volatility in the shorter term, but not really going anywhere. So you want to avoid getting chopped around with that little shorter term volatility, and just keeping eye on the relative trend of weakness. Make sure you're doing that. So we'll be back tomorrow. Let's see what the markets have in store for us. But meanwhile, stay consistent with your plan. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.